Kadena was one of those cryptos that kept popping up in comments as I made different videos, and a lot of people were asking for an analysis of Kadena. And here it is for all of you who've been asking for it. So, is Kadena yet another L1 blockchain? We'll try and figure that out today. So, we'll see what's great, what are some of the uncertain things that I have about Kadena, what are the risks, and what should you really be doing. Right, so we'll look at all this in today's video. So what is Kadena? What are they doing? Now, Kadena is essentially an L1 blockchain, right? They are a blockchain just like Solana and whatnot. They're solving a real problem, obviously, of solving the blockchain trilemma. We saw several blockchains. I did a video on several blockchains trying to solve the same problem. So in the next few years, we might have a winner. But right now, at least, we have like tens of these projects trying to solve the same problem. So that's yet another blockchain trying to solve the same problem. We'll see what's great about them. Right? The first thing that's probably great about them is the fact that they have amazing founders and advisors. Why am I saying it's amazing? I'll talk about that towards the very end. Let me tell you who they are first. So Kadena was founded by two people who happen to be people working with JP Morgan and SEC in very senior capacities. Right now, that is of great importance. They're not from like big tech or something, but the fact that they were working at JP Morgan's lead blockchain division. In fact, they were leading it, and they created the JP coin and so on, JPM coin and so on. There is a lot of weight to it. I'll explain that towards the end. They have an advisor, Dr. Stuart Haber. It was a known 2008 white paper. So that's a pretty interesting person to have as an advisor. So this is something that is extremely good as as something to look forward to. The third thing probably is that they have a private blockchain for enterprises. So it is not just the public blockchain; they have private blockchains, and this is for enterprise purposes. Why am I talking about this? Because this is a very big use case, right? And the fact that these guys are from JP Morgan, I knew they would, like the moment I read that they were from JP Morgan, I knew there would be an enterprise use case somewhere, because that's the thinking that they're sort of tuned into, especially for somebody who's worked there for more than like 15 or 20 years or something like that. Now, if this takes off, that's very big, right? And I believe they did some POCs with a healthcare company. So that is something that might take off really well if they manage to capture it right. IBM is the other big enterprise that has something called Hyperledger, and they are trying to work on a private blockchain as well. The third thing, or the fourth thing rather, is that's great about them is the favorable token distribution. So there was a Messari report which said that Kadena is probably the second best in terms of token distribution, because if you look at all the other competitors, you will see the blue part of the pie, which is essentially insiders, have least or second least in Kadena compared to something like 67% in this one to 48% in Solana. They're all very high. So Near has the lowest, and Kadena, not Near, Kadena has the second lowest, and Edgeware has the lowest. So in terms of token distribution, it is very well distributed. But again, this is assuming it goes through the entire emissions, which is right now I think like 100 years or something. So a little bit misleading, but it's still good to know that in the end, at least, the insiders will not have a majority. There are a few uncertain things that I'm not really very happy about, and I'm not sure how this will go forward. The first one is the modifications to tokenomics. Right. So there's a blog where they talk about their tokenomics. Now let's start with what is their token. Right. So KDA is the token. It's about $1 billion in circulation, and it's a fixed supply. Now they have two things, right? One is mining, through which the tokens are emitted out, and the other one is what has already been allocated at Genesis, right? So that's the Genesis emissions, and their original plan was to have something an emission like this, where you would have roughly about 400 million tokens by 2025, right? Today that's about 200 million tokens, so that means from now to 2025, in about 3 years, right, you will have double the number of tokens, and there was a huge dilution risk. And I'm pretty sure they figured that out, and they thought that it is not good for price, especially when some of the other things are not going so great, and they adjusted it. And the new one looks something like this, where By 2025 you will have only about 275 million instead of 400 million. So that means instead of adding another 100%, it's just going up by about 30%, right? So that much less dilution is what you might face as of today. But the fact that they are playing around with tokenomics, that itself, it could be good, it could be bad, not really sure at this moment. That's why I listed it under uncertain. The next thing is, this is a proof of work based chain. Now a lot of chains are moving away from proof of work and they're moving towards proof of stake. But in a very nice article, right, it's linked in the description. You guys should definitely go through this because it beautifully explains why they're trying to use proof of work and how they will scale using proof of work. They explain some complex theories of from graph theory and so on very nicely in this article, which is quite simple, to be honest. Anybody can understand this, so do give it a read. At the end of it, the conclusion is that they are able to create multiple chains, and which will lead to both having the security, like in the case of Bitcoin, to scaling. So that is what they are trying to tell you through this whole article, that yes, proof of work does work, and also the fact that even Vitalik Buterin has been advocating for sharding as a way to go forward, and the idea that they are proposing is something very close to sharding. So proof of work based chain is what they are implementing. Let's see how this really works out. One problem, however, is that the miners are not just satisfied with the fact that they're minting the tokens, or mining tokens rather. In fact, they are also paid in addition to that, and that seems like that's because the KDA token, just mining it is not enough. Mining itself is a very complex process. They use you need some of the best hardware for it. Hardware for mining this costs about $30,000. Not everybody can do it. And they are supporting these people in subsidizing the mining by giving them additional tokens, rewards, and so on, apart from those that they are mining. So there's a lot of hazy behavior here. Not too sure where this will go to eventually. Then the next thing is a sad roadmap. If you go down to their roadmap, you'll see that they have built a couple of things, and the next set of roadmaps include some infrastructure development as well as a few very common ideas like a DEX and so on. And most of these happen like NFT marketplaces, nothing really out of the world, right? All of these, every single project has all these, mostly things that are like a must have for almost every project. Most projects already have this and they've gone beyond that. These guys are still trying to build those as part of their next set of roadmap items, and integrate with bare minimum things like Chainlink and so on. So that is what their roadmap really says. And those integrations, what is the status of them? Well, there are still many of these integrations with Chainlink, API, the graph, etc. They're all still ongoing. We need to see how that really turns out. So these are all the uncertain things with Kadena at this point of time. There are several risks. Right, the first one being that is a crowded space, right? Extremely crowded space. A lot of blockchains trying to solve this. The last several videos I made were all on several different blockchains trying to solve this exact same problem. Some of them much better in terms of where they are compared to Kadena. So that's the key risk. Demand levers don't make so much of a sense. Right? That's the second risk that I have. If you look at the three demand levers, right, why do you need KDA? The tokens required for direct transfers between users, that means it'll be used as a payment. It's a currency like Bitcoin. Right? Creation of new smart contracts and paying gas fees for executing smart contracts. Now the first one, direct transfers between users. There are so many things that you could use, like Bitcoin for instance, or even Ethereum for instance, as a payment mode, apart from several stable coins and whatnot. So I don't think payments as a use case is going to be big, or even I don't think anybody's going to use it for payments. So this is not really a big use case. Creation of smart contracts and paying gas costs is definitely a use case, but how much of that really is required? Well, if you look at their website, right, this is no cost transactions. Right, they're saying, well, we offer marginal transaction fee for consumers. That means it's almost gasless, or it's like very, very small. So that means if your transactions, even if you have, like, I was just reading, Binance, the smart chain did 3.5 billion transactions to date as of today. Right? So even if you had $1, for a transaction, that's still $3.5 billion. And obviously it's not going to be $1. It's going to be like in 0.000 something. So that means the revenue that's going to come out of transaction cost is almost virtually nothing. So I don't see why there will be a demand for KDA, right? There is no reason for any demand for KDA, and that's something that really concerns me, and that's like a big risk. They're going one step ahead and they're saying, DApp developers can themselves pay for the gas transactions because it's so less. They wouldn't mind, and this would increase adoption. Well, possible it could increase adoption of the DApp itself because you don't need any gas to get started. So that's actually good in terms of getting adoption. But in terms of value for KDA, I don't really see much, right? If it's so small that nobody wants it, or there'll be so little demand for KDA, how will the price sustain? That's my key question. There's a very small active community, right? I usually look at Discord numbers. There are others as well, but Discord is a leading indicator. You have like 19,000 members, very less compared to several other blockchains out there. So that's one thing that I'm a little bit concerned about, and you can see that in terms of their ecosystem growth as well. Ecosystem growth has been very, very slow. They have only about 53 projects, right? Very less projects on this, and that's not something that is too encouraging, because there are other projects that have triple digit projects already, right? Some have more than 1,000 projects on them. So this is a big risk at this point of time. What should you do? Well, first one is, I think, do your own research, obviously, right? Before you do anything else, please do your own research. I have linked all these links in the description. Go through them. The second thing I want you guys to really explore is, should you bet on someone with enterprise roots, right? If you look at Kadena's team, right, they have they have been working on JP Morgan's first blockchain, which became the JPM coin. The other founders working at SEC. There are other founders who have been working with several different projects, but most important, what I want to highlight is the JP Morgan as well as the SEC roots, right? Somebody with that kind of a background will definitely have a lot of connections, and enterprise sales could really get this blockchain taken off, right? Is this a blockchain not really meant for public consumption, rather for enterprise use cases? If that really happens, then KDA could really take off, and that's something that maybe you should explore. And if you are convinced, then do bet on it, right? So research on all these enterprise sales that's possible. Do that. In addition to that, do look at the price. As of today, it's about $1.27 and about 95% down from its all-time high. Will it go back? I don't think so, unless something magical happens on the enterprise side. That's the only thing, in my opinion, that's going to pick up Kadena's price. Otherwise, this is going nowhere, in my opinion. Even though we don't have much of a dilution risk, but still, because there's no demand, number of projects being built, everything seems to be low at this point of time. I don't see Kadena going too far ahead at this point of time, unless enterprise sales really pick up. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about it, and welcome to the Wave Crypto Club. Stay tuned for more such amazing videos.